So I actually just found a professor whose research I liked, who didn't even have a job posted. And I just decided to walk into his office and pestered his secretary for a meeting and asked him. And this guy was a professor at the Media Lab at MIT, building really cool things in sort of embedded computing devices. And I wanted to be able to code for him. And I asked him for that job, and he says, I have, you can have it, but what's your experience? We write code in C here. And I said, look, the computers I had access to in India, the RAM was so small that you couldn't load up C on it. But I've read the manual, and I wasn't lying. I had read the manual, and thankfully MIT is just the kind of place where professors are willing to buy that the people that show up there are weird enough to have read the manual. So he gave me that chance.
Monday,
exactly.
you got it.
That's exactly. I'd read, the original book by Dennis Ritchie on C, and I could code in C, and he let me have that chance, and I did. And that was my first job, and then he wrote me my first letter of recommendation to then get.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Inside the C-Suite. My name is Ryan Leary. We've got Mr. William Tincup, and our guest today is Rishi Kumar. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you. So today we're going to learn about Rishi's journey, what he's currently doing, but we really want to spend time with him today to understand where he came from, how he came up, and how he got to where he is today. So Rishi, how about we start off with just introduce yourself to the audience and let everyone know what you're doing today.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with his plight? Aha! Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
Sure. I'm a co-founder and co-CEO at Kashable, which is a financial wellness platform that's offered to large employers for use by their employees, where we offer things like credit monitoring, financial coaching, financial literacy resources, and personal installment loans to provide a safety net to working America.
That's fantastic. Any specific industries or size of companies or anything like that?
Sure. The main distinction between Kashable and other financial services companies, be it banks or other large fintechs, is that our offering is only in places where we have deep integrations into HRIS systems and payroll systems. And the HRIS integration delivers all of the underwriting data we would need from a loan. So things like employment, income verification, time on the job, pay type, all of that happens seamlessly. The borrower doesn't have to submit any paperwork to us. It's all instantaneous, and that enables us to deliver a loan decision in a matter of 10 seconds and fund the loan the next day. And in many cases, we get information not just about our applicant, but high-level information about all employees that work at that employer that enables us to take a group-based underwriting approach, something that the health insurance, life, disability insurance industries have figured out for decades, and something that works very well. And that's why your health plan offered by your employer is a lot cheaper than an individual plan that's equivalent you could buy on the Obamacare exchange, because the insurer can take into account the demographic details of your entire group. And we are able to replicate that sort of logic in lending. And we are a pioneer in doing that. And that's one big aspect of our business. And the other side is that the payroll connection is how we get repaid. So employees don't have to think about repaying us. It comes automatically out of their paycheck. And usually that makes for a better borrower. So our default rates are lower, and it also means people's credit scores improve as they stay on with us. So between these two big changes to how the financial services paradigm normally works, group-based underwriting, HRIS connection, payroll-based repayments, our unit economics per loan are much better than what other lenders or banks might achieve. And we can then take that on and pass that to our borrowers, our users, in the form of lower rates on the one side, which is fantastic, but maybe even more fantastic in the form of saying yes to a lot more people than other people do. Now, this whole thing only generally works in a large employer context. So to your question, William, we generally focus on larger employers and employers where there's longevity of employment. So we have a lot of business in government, both federal, state, local, then in nonprofit, which is primarily two verticals: nonprofit education, so large universities like Drexel, Temple, et cetera, and then healthcare systems like Hartford Health, Harris Health, Sharp Health in San Diego, a bunch of places like that. And then large corporates, so companies like IKEA or defense contractors like Huntington or Cognizant, Samsung. We've had a lot.
So yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Rishi, why don't you take us all the way back to your childhood? Let's we're gonna get personal for a moment here.
Let's do it.
So we want to learn about your journey. We want to know where you came from, how you became who you are today. So walk us through the start. Where were you as a child? Where did you grow up? And maybe get into what was your first business as a child?
Sure. I grew up in India. I was born in India, and I was there through high school. And I came to the U.S. on a scholarship to MIT to study computer science. And I graduated from there with degrees in both computer science and then finance, both for my undergrad and my master's. And then for my summers and then full-time later, I traded bond derivatives to start. I arrived on Wall Street at the time when Wall Street was transitioning from lacrosse jocks to math guys, and I was part of that transition. But I sort of quickly tired of the big bank routine, and I felt that my real calling was in smaller business as an entrepreneur, and that led me to start my first company in the financial crisis when a lot of banks and other companies were pulling out or filing for bankruptcy. It was a great opportunity as a person with no legacy balance sheet to start up then. And that company provides financing to small businesses that are underserved, that are not bankable. And a few years later, realized that an even bigger opportunity existed in consumer America, where in the post-financial crisis world, banks had really retreated thanks to regulation and costs and things from the small dollar market, where a lot of the major banks don't even want the deposit business of our average consumer. There's the vast majority of W-2 employee working America is non-prime and doesn't carry big savings balances. So who takes care of them? There's a lot of kind of the tech ecosystem is started by well-heeled founders that cater to other well-heeled consumers.
Right.
But there's a lot more of the rest of America, and that's what motivated me to start Kashable. I had a personal story that was similar. I didn't come to the U.S. we had $200, but thankfully a scholarship to a great institution, but no credit history. So getting started in the financial services business was difficult for me too. My school helped me a lot in that. The International Student Office helped set me up with my first credit card from Amex, which I still have. So that got me my start, and I'm looking to give that same start to other people.
I love it. So let me ask you about leadership. As you've been through your journey, was there someone that you looked to and that you wanted to emulate? And it could be parts of different people, either in the public domain or even friends and family, but is looking for that model of leadership. I mean, obviously you were taught in school, so you have some elements, right, of all that stuff. But is there anybody that you just looked up to and said, I want to be like her, I want to do this bit?
Yeah, I don't think that I modeled myself after any one individual. And in some respects, I'd say I was an accidental leader. And maybe that exemplifies the type of leader I am too. I didn't start out or believing that leadership is my destiny per se. That wasn't the genesis. Some people like go into entrepreneurship, and many times people that look on it from the outside say, oh, you're your own boss, and maybe that was the motivation, right? Like not having the boss hierarchy trampling on you from above. But that wasn't the motivation for me. The motivation for me was to have an impact in a bigger way than I could as a cog in a big machine, where I was not tangibly related to any impact. I could see that, yes, maybe financing these bonds would build infrastructure or companies that would eventually impact somebody. Maybe that was it, but shuffling money and being able to take out a little bit in between wasn't satisfactory. And if I had to figure out how do I personally attain that sense of fulfillment, for me, that was the genesis of my entrepreneurial journey, which then made me a doer leader. I came at it with the desire to do and make impact, and not with the desire to lead per se. So in that sense, I became an accidental leader and an accidental manager. Everyone in my company, the first company that I started out, now I'm an elder statesman in Kashable, because we have people like Megan on the phone here that are young uns in the team. But back then I was the youngest on my team, even though I was running the company. So I had to learn the management side of it, and also the leadership side of it. So if I had to tell you sort of what leadership style I like or that I embody, I'd say it's a tip of the spear leadership. That's how I think about it. There are some people that think about themselves as the strategists in the war room. That are playing out the pieces on the board and directing the machinations of those pieces. I'd say I'm the tip of the spear. There's no job in my company that I haven't done, and there's nothing I ask of anybody on my team that I'm not willing to do myself. I've written the code, I've sold the deals, I've looked at the documents, I've even taken help desk calls and responded to tickets, and I'm willing to do all of that over again.
Very nice. So the journey from when you came from India, you came to the States on your scholarship.
It's kind of a big place. So
yes,
if you don't mind, I'm a geography person. So.
Yeah, sure. It's a small town called Jamshedpur, which you might have known or not known about, but it's sort of geographically in the center and in the east. Calcutta is the nearest big city. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll qualify that small town bit just because I didn't realize what small town America was till I showed up here. but for us, small town is not two stores and a gas station. It was 600,000 people when I was there, and it's about 1 million people today. But in India land, that we barely broke the top 50 in terms of cities.
Right.
But it was the
size of Fort Worth, by the way. It's described.
Yes, it's sort of a cross between a Detroit and a Pittsburgh, I'd say. Like India's first steel company was started there. India's first auto company was started there. It's the home of all of the Tata companies in India.
Well, how far from the Taj Mahal are you?
Oh, pretty far. I mean, that's near Delhi, so I'm sort of like in the opposite end of the country.
Got it. Okay, sorry, Ryan.
What were some of those challenges that you faced coming over? You mentioned the $200, not having credit, right? Getting all that help. Like, I can't even get a soda for $200 anymore, right? Like, let's be real. It's a tank of gas. But talk about some of those challenges and what did you do to kind of set your mind straight and stay true to your goal and kind of navigate north there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, there are a lot of challenges. Sometimes people look at sort of this culture shock and what it'll mean, and to some people it's a linguistic barrier. In my case, that wasn't the case. I grew up bilingual. I went to a Jesuit school in India. So I was speaking English when I was 3, and I had perfect SAT scores. So it wasn't that like my language skills were any.
I
like a
perfect SAT score.
And he said score is plural. Like it wasn't just I just got lucky one day, got a perfect SAT score. Scores.
Unfortunately, they only take a couple of people a year from India at MIT. So that's kind of what you have to do. But But that for me, all I meant to say is that those were not the barriers. The barriers are there are many other sorts of things that happen. For example, I had come to be a computer science major at the top computer science school in the world. I'd never owned a computer.
Right.
I didn't even have one once I showed up to MIT. I had to win another scholarship to have the money to buy one.
How did you? So how did you do that? Did you know you wanted to get into computers? Like,
yes,
how did that work?
I was the top computer science student where I came from, but that had to be done on shared machines. So I started to. I was very fond of computer science. I like coding, but I just didn't have a computer. So I read a lot of books, and I wrote my code on paper to start and I would line up to get my hour in front of the shared computer and quickly type it out and hit run when I had my time. and that's how I had to start that journey. But thankfully, I think, look, I preach the American gospel everywhere, but this is the kind of unique country that gives people like me the opportunity to do what I've been able to do and is willing to take a bet on me. When my first job, to your earlier point, was also at MIT, and because I had to start working immediately as soon as I got there, and I had to find some work to do. But I didn't want to do a job that was, not to deride those jobs. I didn't have any resume, so I needed a job that not just paid money, but also built on my resume. So I actually just found a professor whose research I liked, who didn't even have a job posted, and I just decided to walk into his office and pestered his secretary for a meeting and asked him. And this guy was a professor at the Media Lab at MIT, building really cool things in sort of embedded computing devices. And I wanted to be able to code for him. And I asked him for that job, and he says, I have, you can have it, but what's your experience? We write code in C here. And I said, look, the computers I had access to in India, the RAM was so small that you couldn't load up C on it. But I've read the manual, and I wasn't lying. I had read the manual, and thankfully MIT is just the kind of place where professors are willing to buy that the people that show up there are weird enough to have read the manual. So he gave me that chance.
Monday,
exactly.
You got it.
That's exactly. I'd read, the original book by Dennis Ritchie on C, and I could code in C, and he let me have that chance, and I did. And that was my first job, and then he wrote me my first letter of recommendation to then get my first internship at Qualcomm that summer. So look, this is the kind of place where, yes, there were a lot of challenges, but there's also a lineup of benefactors, people that are willing to take chances. That same story for me has repeated so many times in America with people that have been, whether it's my investors or friends or professors or other people. Every job I've had has been in an industry I had no experience in, whether this was the one, but after that, when I went to Wallstreet, it was the same thing. And I didn't even know what an investment bank was when I came to the U.S. and then I was a bond trader 2 years later, right? So it was it's that kind of thing. My first day in commercial finance was in my own company. My first day in consumer lending was at Kashable.
Well, what's interesting to me is look at how much good you've done in your experience in the United States. Look at how much good you've done. And so, like, you hear, when you watch the news, you hear a whole lot of anti-immigration language that has been going on for 300 years, by the way. It's nothing new. We hated the Italians. We hated the Irish. We could go through that whole bit. The truth is there's people like yourself that actually come to this country and make it better. You could have easily gone back to India and made India better, right? And I'm sure you probably had that pull as well. So, first of all, thank you. Thank you for staying and making us better and the world better. But I want to get into, you are a co-founder, which I'm assuming means there's another or maybe others that are co-founders. And I'm always interested in the dynamic. Ryan and I are co-founders, right?
Sure.
But our firm's only two people, so it's not that hard. I guess you can imagine. One of us has to do something. So, like, when something has to get done, there's like, all right, you, me, and our partnership, because we've known each other for a long time, he knows what I'm good at and bad at, and vice versa. So we kind of play to each other's strengths. your relationship with your co-founder, of what you can talk about. We're not trying to,
Yeah,
but
sure.
just like tell us a little bit about that.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
I am so excited for this spa day. Candles lit, music on, hot tub warm and ready. And then my chronic hives come back. Again, in the middle of my spa day. What a wet blanket. Looks like another spell of itchy red skin. If you have chronic spontaneous urticaria or CSU, there is a different treatment option. Hives during my next spa day? Not if I can help it. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
Yeah, I've had a fantastic journey with my co-founder. She's been an amazing partner to me, a friend to me, and many other things. We've worked together for 14 years between two different companies, and we have had a great run across both. We are very different from each other. I'm the technology guy and finance bond guy, credit, interest rate. Her background is as a lawyer, but she's also an immigrant. She grew up in Israel. I think you might have spoken to her once, William, Einat's the Club. And she's brilliant, and she's tenacious and tough. I mean, she's everything you would want in the trenches with you in a fight and more. And, over the years, we have very distinct specialties and areas of knowledge. We have a ton of respect for each other, and we have our sort of areas of expertise where we make the majority of decisions and we confer with the other. But because we have such distinct specialties, that's made it easier to have that partnership because we know that the other one is better in those domains than the one. And then we can collaborate on everything else where a common communal sort of strategic decision is required. But more importantly than everything else, I think just like a good marriage is not just about love and the times of how you agree. I think what's really set us apart and made for this wonderful journey is that we've built up a good decision-making framework that's built around consensus. And we have built up a good process for dispute resolution. And that's what matters more. Like, we fight better than other people, and because we are different and those things are going to happen. And that difference is exactly what has made our journey together better, because we come at problems from different vantage points and different lenses of specialization. And that gets us eventually better outcomes. But we have built mechanisms and dialogue around when we have those differences, how will we resolve them and get through it?
So I've got a question here, but a few comments too, because you said a couple things that, one, if you were able to wait in line for 1 hour to code on a computer, how in the hell do I get my daughters to share a TV or a phone? Like, I need some help there. Parenting fail 101, right? I need your help there. Two, it sounds like you were describing William's thoughts on me. Like, he must have shared his thoughts on how he feels about me. So that's fantastic. But seriously, how do you define? You've done a lot, right, in this short journey, although it probably feels like 50 years.
Yes.
How do you define success? How do you know you've done well?
I'm a very systematic guy. I'm ambitious, and I've gotten to this place from relatively humble beginnings in small town India through methodical sort of effort and commitment to my cause. So I periodically go through the exercise of, what is it that matters to me, and what do I deem success, and what are the dimensions of that success. And When being on the bond trading floor, for example, had helped me achieve like some components of that. For example, when I first graduated, it was important for me, both for myself and for my parents, my family, to be able to generate income quickly, to be able to support them and me, and be able to pay off some student debt that I graduated with. So that was the crux of the success metric to start, to have sort of build brand equity on my resume, generate cash, be in a position. One thing that was fantastic about Wall Street and the bond trading floor was that I didn't need to have any relationships. Nobody cared, what my family was, or what my race was, or like how many fancy people I knew. It was I had a P&L stream. Like, I was accounted for $1. If I was smart enough and aggressive enough and I could print enough money, I could have some, right? So that was mostly and that was awesome, but it was not fulfilling in other ways. And so when it came time, 4 years into that, for me to leave, that was a time of reckoning for me to be able to figure out what dimensions do I define success by that need to go beyond the P&L figure hanging over my head on a daily basis, and that's not what I want. I didn't want my epitaph to be bond trader, and I didn't want my self-worth to be my P&L stream. And so that was one sort of big moment of reckoning for me. And I figured that I'll define my success on a multifaceted basis, where the economics of it is one component, but there were a few other big components to that. Another big one for me is my close relationships, whether it's my family, my friends, that matter a lot to me, that I've lived a lot of my life in service of, and I'll continue to do. And it's the same with my team here. And the third was that I wanted to have tangible impact. And that's what brought me to a business like Kashable, where we serve a footprint of 2.5-3 million employees across hundreds of employers. We've lent out $1 billion in financing to people that would have gotten no's from everyone else. We have 250,000+ people signed up for using our platform. It makes me feel good to be able to say that I've been able to be part of the financial journey or access journey of that many people's lives. And that was one other big dimension. And there were other dimensions like health. So that I wasn't able to cater to when I was a bond trader. My sort of gym subscription was more like a donation than anything else. And, I'm a fitness buff, separate from the skiing, William, that we just talked about. I do a lot of other things as well. But that was important to me. So, and I take that stuff seriously too. So, I can hold a 20-second handstand. I'm certified as a ski instructor. I taught at Jackson Hole for one season too. So for a guy who didn't see snow till he was 19 years old, I felt that, being able to achieve in those dimensions was important to me as well. And then I'm motivated by learning. So I've, alongside whatever else I do in my core business, I've always spent time both learning, building physical skill, but also intellectual or other skills. For example, over the last few years I've been taking classes. I now speak Mandarin fluently. So that's something I'm pursuing on the side. So these were sort of the things that I feel make for a consummate individual and sort of a broad-based success. And that's what I've been shooting for.
Advice you'd give your 18-year-old self?
I'd say that one thing that I've built a better appreciation for over time is that when I was younger, I differentiated myself from the masses on technical skill and raw intellectual horsepower. That was my game. Like, so when I was in Wall Street, if I was the young analyst at the desk, but I knew the newest algorithms best. They were all like part of my thesis work and whatever. So even in my first summer I built a bond optimization software that then became part of one of the production systems that my firm used. And so they paid me for a full year after my internship as a grad student and gave me a promotion before I ever started my full-time job. And I felt like, hey, if I can make the lives of the people that I work for easier because I'm automating things or adding technology and differentiate myself technically, that's my way to move forward, because I don't have the wisdom, the experience, the relationship, etc. But what I've realized is that technical skill development is great, but in the long haul of life, it's not the winner. That there's always some other young'un nipping at your heels, and that young'un will eventually outpace you. They'll know generative AI better, or crypto better, or whatever will be the next year's technology better than what I could know today, right? So I still keep up with a lot of that type of skill work, but eventually someone is going to outdo me. But real impact in the world is not just about having a toolkit of how to solve problems. It's also about, one, understanding domains to know what problems to solve. And that can only be built through being willing to go deep into any world, any business. Whether for me, it's this consumer finance, employee benefits world. For someone else, it might be something completely different. It could be solving disease spaces. It could be green tech. It could be anything, any domain, learning it enough to know what the problem domain is to which you should apply your technical skills. That's one thing that needs to get built up over time. And the second big one that's an enduring advantage is to have good relationships. Because that's something that no young'un or anyone else can beat out, and is a very difficult thing to build up. So, treating people well and building relationships with them over time. And I think I underestimated the value of that. Especially the MIT culture was all about, who's the best hacker and who's got the best technical skill, and networking was almost a 4-letter word. Like, it was like, oh, you're a networker, like, probably you're not competent, so you need to network. So, so I think being able to change that mentality and say that, yes, build technical skills, but value relationships just as much. Build those, find mentors, have a peer network, do all that, because that's the enduring thing that you'll keep with you, whether you're 60, 70, or what.
So I've got a question. This is, I don't know if you follow basketball or sports, but I'm sure you know Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, right? So greats like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Wayne Gretzky, I saw an interview from him the other day with hockey. They never admit someone's going to outwork them. They always say, no one's going to outwork me in the gym. No one's going to outwork me on the court. No one's going to come first, But you did, right? You're comfortable with that. Why are you comfortable with saying, I can do all this? At some point, someone's going to outpace me. Mm-hmm. What makes you feel comfortable to talk about that and be vulnerable like that?
Yeah, I don't see it as a vulnerability. I sort of see it as I see it as an advantage. I have won by being multidisciplinary. Most people in any one domain only know their own domain. In every place where I have won, even for example in Kashable, we've imported philosophies that have been pioneered by health insurance and life and disability insurance providers. It just haven't been brought to bear in lending, and we were able to do that, right? So, and we have patents around that, and we've been able to build this, and we have this huge business we've built around it by being willing to be multidisciplinary. I did the same thing in bond trading, where I was able to use tools that were back then developed in the operations research paradigm to solve optimization problems in other domains and leverage them to create optimal bond portfolios, right? So those were well solved and well understood problems in things like figuring out best routes for trucks.
Right.
But it just hadn't been used for my particular use case. So being able to stray from that, for me, has not been a disadvantage. The other thing that I feel like is, and I think about the same athlete analogy all the time, Ryan. So I think it's very pertinent when I think about how to develop my case. It's the same reason that, for example, when I started out to build Kashable, the goal was not to become a billionaire, as an example. Like, maybe it will lead to that eventuality anyway, but that's not why I'm doing it. Because any more than I want to be an Olympian in skiing or anything else, being at that level of specialization demands a hefty price of sacrificing all else in your life to that. I'm late in life, but I'm trying out gymnastics now and things like that. And I've trained with gymnasts and circus artists and ballet dancers. And sometimes the best of them, you're like, what you had to go through as a child and do to your feet or whatever else was sort of tantamount to torture at some level. And do you want the highlight of your 90-year-old life to be the particular achievement that you had at age 19 or 24? I don't know. For me, that's not what I want. Yeah. That is not the recipe for a fulfilling life. Balance is the recipe for a fulfilling life. And there's plenty of achievement that can be had with balance and being multidisciplinary. I'm not willing to sacrifice my feet at the ballet altar or the rest of my life at the billionaire altar. It is, I don't want to be the Olympian in any of these disciplines. Yeah, it is not where I believe happiness is at.
I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit about the start of Kashable. What was the hardest thing initially? You're about to do this bit. You've already started a business, so there's certain things that you probably already kind of had an expectation of, and you already had kind of a business partner with your co-founder. But what was the hardest thing initially that you had to kind of overcome?
Sure. I think in principle, when we describe what we do in Kashable as a business, most of the time, the response from most people is, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. It's simple. Yes, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's a great mousetrap. And I think that was the way we came at it as well. We came at it from finance and technology, and we knew those space as well. And we said, it makes sense. Makes sense. This should be a no-brainer. Like, everybody in the benefits world should love it. Employers should love it. But I think we totally underestimated on our end a few things. The regulatory component of being in the consumer lending business. Right. Is extremely taxing, especially if you're a non-bank. We have to be regulated state by state. We have 50 licenses, like we have nationwide footprint plus Puerto Rico. It takes a lot of work, and it's a multi-year process to line all that up. Very different from many other components of this ecosystem. The second was that we also completely underestimated the complexity of the enterprise sale process and employee 100%. Benefits, and how convoluted it is, how fragmented that market is,
especially at the large enterprise, because of where you play. That's an 18-month sale.
Yes, and there are so many different actors, whether it's the payroll company, the HRIS platform, the benefits broker, the retirement plan administrator, the HR teams, the IT teams, the C-suite, so many different people. And by and large, our experience with HR teams has been that they're really amazing people. The 99% of them are extremely empathetic. They really are trying to do the right thing by their employees, and it's been fascinating to meet them, to pitch to them with them, and be partners with them in the common clients. But they're under-resourced. They're a cost center in most companies. They're risk managers in many cases. Yep. They have not been always charged with creating an elevated life. They're given very scant resources and asked to do a lot. And
especially when it comes to benefits, because they're in the business of every year looking at consumption and seeing what got consumed or adopted, what didn't, and then pruning and maybe adding pet insurance or something else. So you're in the mix with financial wellness. You're in the mix against other types of benefits that they're looking at, a portfolio of benefits that they want to give their employees. And none of that, there's no workbook for that.
Yeah.
Like, and every company is different. Every benefits person or CHRO looks at benefits differently.
Exactly. So I think we underestimated that, and landing our first big client took us several years.
Right.
But we had a couple of really big Fortune 500 companies give us an early shot. One big one was Cognizant, which is
cool.
a very large tech type company. They had a unique problem. Very highly skilled paid workers, but many of them H-1B visa immigrants that also didn't have credit history, very similar to my own experience and Adon's experience. And we were willing to provide them financing. When you first come here, you still have to pay a deposit for your rent. You still have to figure out how to get a car, a postpaid cell phone plan. There's so many different things that require that. And we were able to solve that problem uniquely for them. And that became our first large client. And that also brought us our first large broker relationship. Willis Towers Watson helped us get into that deal, and we had a champion there. And then we sort of took it from there. We then realized that, hey, we need to be having these large brokerage houses as channel partners. So at this point, probably all of the top 20 players, whether it's Willis Towers, of course, but also Mercer, Alight Solutions, Aon, Gallagher, Hub. They all sell our stuff, and we're integrated on all the major benefits platforms. But they have very rigorous processes for onboarding companies too. The diligence process and the contracting, and then getting the first client was all a multi-year journey at each of these companies. But I think what felt like a grind for all these past years is today our moat. This is what keeps out other companies from being in our space, and that I like that. I was willing to put in what it takes to get this far, and that is what's going to set me apart.
Very nice, very nice. So, okay. I haven't asked this question of any other interview that we've had on Inside
so it
the
could
C-Suite.
suck, is what you're saying.
It could suck. It could suck.
Just want to put it out there.
I was thinking about it because we always joke about, William and I always joke and say we're not employable anymore, right? And I don't feel like I should say that in case I ever need a job, right?
I think about it all the time.
I'm pretty much, dude,
yeah,
ship sailed.
That's gone, right? So, but not necessarily your role at Kashable, but like everything you've done, I guess including Kashable, everything that you've done, could you go onto the market, and are you employable at this point? Or as a founder and CEO, you're just like, no, this is not for me. I need to build, run, and create a journey. Do you have any regrets there?
Yeah, I don't have a regret there. I sort of concur with your assessment.
Yes.
That the odds are high.
He wasn't saying you were unemployable.
Yeah. No. I concur.
Sure.
I have pondered this problem many times, and I sort of concur with your eventual assessment that it's very likely that we're all unemployable. That most jobs don't come for top dog job is up for grabs. Like that rarely happens. And also the way that the skills that got you to where you've built up your business or I've built up mine are not the same skills.
Right.
Sort of a hunter mentality or an adventurer mentality is not the same thing that's needed.
I'm not sure corporations could handle that.
Right. They don't move as fast as you. Yeah.
Well, like what they would need to do with somebody like yourself is spin you out.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that
exactly.
and that would work. I mean, there's several examples of where that works, where they you have a great idea and they spin you out, and then you've got kind of a backer as well as. But I'm even further on the spectrum, if you will. I question when someone offers me a job. I question their decision making.
The fact that you're offering me this job tells me
exactly. It's like Groucho Marx. I don't want to be a member of anybody that would offer me a membership.
That's right.
So it's like when that happens to me, when it happens to all of us. But when someone does that, I'm like, "How are you thinking? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
To even think that thought that I could conform to anything remotely close to what you would want in your organization. Like, I would be the guy going around destroying stuff in your organization. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want that. It's a great question, Ryan. Actually, it's a really great question. As you should. What's it? Tell us about. Obviously you got a board of directors, and they're all awesome, done, stated, covered. But advice that you'd give young entrepreneurs on building their boards, like what do you think that kind of the success that y'all have had with your board? How does someone else mimic that or learn kind of instead of the hard way? Maybe they can learn from you.
Yeah, look, I think I'm new to the board process as well. When we started out, we had a handful of fantastic investors, but that were primarily housed within family offices that were very patient capital, and separately from other operating companies in our business, we've also raised maybe 5 times as much debt capital as we've raised equity capital. Because we manage the balance sheet for the loans, so we have a lot more of those than we have equity investors. But many of those family office investors, the patriarch who kind of created the empire, was sort of done with their time being an active operator, and they were more looking for me to be, it's more like, you work for me, like I don't want to be working for you on your board, sort of thing. So they were a little bit more hands-off in their approach. In the last year, we now have had more institutional VCs join our cap table, and that's been fantastic. And they are willing and interested in being, they view but they're also, they've done this many times with many companies, and they want to be on our board. And so we now have an active institutional board, and that's been great to have, because beyond a certain point, Inat and I, as the two sort of ideation people for the big picture strategy of the company, we're running out of new corners to go into, and
you need to see you need people that can see around the corner, connect dots that you can't connect, etc. And sometimes it's just experiential. And if you've got institutional VCs that have taken 14 companies public. Yeah. Okay. Well, you could read the manual over the weekend. Yes. However,
exactly. They've done it many times. They know many best practices around many things. So whether it's, capital raising definitely is one, but also M&A, compensation for team members, many different things that they have benchmarking across their portfolio that we can leverage. But also, they're used to being in that strategic seat. So they are a great sounding board for us. I think for us, the big thing was in bringing on our board members and investors was that they have a common ideology when it comes to one mission orientation around our business. We are a double bottom line business. Everybody that comes to work at Kashable is one big part. We can't compete with big tech on comp and benefits. People come to work here because they believe in what we do, and that just like I feel that I've tangibly connected to the impact I'm making, all of them do too. And we want our investors to be in that same camp, and they have been. The other thing that we wanted in our investors was that there are, different classes of venture investors. There's, the people that are sort of like the spray and pray type of, making 100 investments, like they know 90 of them are going to go bust. They don't really care. And others that are just like momentum investors that are just investing in the latest hot thing, just looking for the next, like it's the hot potato that they need to hand to the next guy who's willing to pay a higher price. And that's the business plan, finding the next fool, right? Like that's not our business. Like I don't want to, we've unearthed a nugget of value in an industry that has otherwise been combed over by people forever. There aren't many of them left. So, we are not going to destroy our nugget of value in pursuit of some craziness because it's the latest fad, or just like set venture money on fire for some random growth rate that is unachievable given our sales cycle, etc. So, we needed to have people that feel that, like us, like this needs to be a winner. and not just a moonshot. This is one of one for me, even if this is one of 10 or 50 for them. And thankfully, we have investors like that think of their portfolio more like an art collection where each piece is curated than a dartboard, right? So, that has been fantastic for us to have.
How do you navigate that process? And I'll qualify that by saying a lot of people that listen to this specific show are entrepreneurs. They're young, they're out there, they've started their business, maybe they failed a couple of times, but they're still kind of working that way. And a lot of them may feel desperate. They need money, they need cash. How do you navigate that? How do you align yourself?
Yeah, look, it's a lot like finding a girlfriend or a wife. Like, are you going to let the desperation of your loneliness?
I just took what came. Whoever chose me, I went with it. I'm not going to lie. I hit the jackpot. I'm not going to lie.
You did. So, but you probably had a good feeling. Like, I'm not talking about the sourcing of your partner. The sourcing of your partner might have been an accident.
Yes.
But the assessment of fit was no accident, right?
Yes.
And that's what I mean. That we're not sitting swiping right on any sort of platform that has 50 investors listed. That's not what we did either, right? Like all of our relationships came through other relationships. People introduced us, etc. We just put ourselves out there, saying this is us. Who wants in?
Meet us where we are.
Yeah, but assessment of fit is something that we all have to do, and that decision can't come out of the desperation of need for capital in this domain any more than it can come out of the desperation and need of company in finding your plus one, right? Like we have to go through that same sort of assessment of fit, because a marriage born out of that kind of desperation is you're looking at the eventuality or inevitability of failure down the road, and you're just delaying it. And like that's, again, I think not the right way to operate. Like you have to face your truths head on. We knew the truths about our business. What is it that we want? That we are a mission-oriented company, that we are not looking to take this to a zero or hero type of outcome. Like this is a solid business that has real impact on a lot of people, and it will have value. There is baseline value in it that is not a function of momentum, not a function of hype, and not a function of market cycles. And who can appreciate that?
I think, one of the themes that we'll pull out of this is that fit that you described, that mission-driven fit, is probably permeates all your relationships, even customers, prospects. I think if we were to go through your customer, list, they're all kind of in a similar. They fit in the way that you want them to fit. Because if their client ever pushed you outside of that comfort zone, you'd probably find a way to repel them or get them out of your value chain, just because.
Absolutely.
Not everyone's going to fit, but if you do that on the front end where you're prospecting and asking the right questions, you just never even get to meet those people because you've already kind of moved them along. We could talk to you forever. Like this has been so fantastic, but you've got like a job and some stuff to do today, so we should probably let you go. He's
unemployable. He's good to
No. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a to-do list. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man, sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great meeting you both, William and Ryan.
Yeah.
And looking forward to seeing you again.
100%. And if you're still listening, you're still watching, please connect with us, subscribe everywhere you are, wherever we are. If you see us, say hello. If you're lucky, we'll say hello back. Until next time.
Thank you.